Guys who had fun with your friend's mom. What's your story? Story 1. I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment with roommates. Above us in an identical 2-bedroom apartment lived a 35-year-old woman and her 7 children. She had an 8th child that did not live with her. She worked overnight, so I would help watch out for her kids while she was gone. I was 20. Her oldest that lived with her was a 16-year-old girl who I started to tutor. I grew up really poor and really identified with these kids, so I started buying them clothes and threw them birthday parties. She was just getting out of a 19-year relationship with a very abusive husband. I met him a few times when he would come to see the kids. He was a real asshole and huge, like 6'10". I never expected anything out of this, just felt bad for her and the kiddos. She finally moved to a 3-bedroom apartment in the same complex when she came into a small amount of extra money. I spent the entire weekend moving them. I was actually pretty excited to no longer have to hear all of those kids running on my ceiling and was happier they had more space to live. We were sitting exhausted in the living room with all of the kids when we finally done moving, out of nowhere. She texts me, "Do you want to f***?" I was such a sweet, naive kid, lots of drugs and partying but sexually inexperienced. I didn't know how to say no, so I said yes. She said she would meet me at my apartment when the kids are asleep. I went home to get ready, but she didn't show up. I freaked out, thought she was testing me or something. She finally texted me the next day saying she just fell asleep but would be over that night. She showed up. We were watching Phantom of the Opera, and she slowly moved my hands to her nipples, which I discovered were pierced. My first experience with that. We eventually moved to my bedroom where my mind wasn't the only thing that got blown. This went for about 6 months. It was one of the best experiences of my life. She forever changed things for me. I did feel kind of bad for her kids because we did become very close, like family, but then one day it just ended. No regrets, I still think about her. Story 2. I was in high school at the time, so our friend's mom, who we all thought was a huge bitch, was single with 3 kids, our friend being the oldest. Now they'd moved into this house on the outskirts of town. Not a lot of traffic went by, so it was a perfect party place. So in the time frame of them living there, let's say 3 to 4 years, she had another baby. That'd make 4 kids for this single woman. So her son, our friend, ended up in some trouble and had to go live with his dad. In that time frame, myself and another buddy would help her out with the kids and such. In return, she would buy us beer and cigarettes, the occasional Xanax. All in all, it was a great trade-off. So one night, my buddy and I are over watching the kids. At this point, the youngest was 1 to 2 and fast asleep. She had gone out on a date. Left us a big bottle of 150. 1 and 2 packs of smokes. We cracked the bottle and she'd come back home. The date didn't go so well. She starts drinking with us. So we are all talking and laughing, just having a great time. She asks if we want a Xanax, we say yes, and then the night gets funky. We turned on music, we were dancing and singing and a lot of drinking. Now she wasn't a very attractive woman, and at this point she wanted something she didn't get from the date, and me being a 16-year-old just wanted to get it in, no matter the cost. My buddy ends up puking all over himself and runs to the shower. And I think it a good idea to start rubbing her back, reviving up the engine, so to speak. Well, it worked by the time I knew what was happening. We were in her room clothes on the floor, and she's playing tonsil hock with my member. I've totally forgotten about my buddy, who had to have been out of the shower by now. All I could focus on was the fact that my good friend's mom is now sucking my dick. We started banging it out. I couldn't tell you if it was good or bad, if I was in the pinky, the stinky, or a wet wrinkle, but it felt good. So at this point, my insides are marinating in 151. The Xanax has me giving no shits, and I finish and walk out and pass out on the couch, not really having known what just happened. I wake up the next morning, get home feeling like death, and start recapping, quickly coming to the conclusion of what happened. I didn't tell a single soul about it until one night we were at another party, and my buddy that was there, I finally brought it up. It had been so long I figured he didn't know about it because he never said anything, and there was no way I was letting it get out that I f***ed my friend not really attractive mom, intoxicated beyond what most 16-year-olds should be, and did I mention that it was my first time. So all in all, my friend's mom, my buddy who was there, and myself to my knowledge are the only ones who know, and of course, you swine? Story 3. My little brother's friend's mother hooked up with me. She was always at the bar that my cousin and I would go play pool at. One night we was about to leave to go to the bigger town next to us, and she followed me outside asking where I was going. I told her we were going to the town next to us to get some more drinks and maybe go to the strip club. She asked if I would call her when I got back to town, so she gave me her number and we left. We go to a few bars in the town over from us and then end up at the strip club. The whole time my cousin was bugging me about what I'm going to do. I said, "F it, let's go," and I give her a call on the way home. I know my little brother is not going to be at the house and everyone else is asleep. I tell her to come over and sneak her through the back door and we get going. My cousin is waiting outside just in case my brother comes home. Well, I hear my cousin yelling my name and I knew what it meant, so we sneak out the front door and into the woods. Right next to the house, I tell her to wait there, and I go deal with my little brother who knows something is up, but I just deflect, and my cousin and I leave, and we pick her up next to the road where I told her to wait. We ended the night, all three of us smoking pot at a scenic view. We ended up sneaking off together every now and then to get with each other more, but it ended when she got to clean. Story 4. Knew a kid in high school. We used to play Diablo together sometimes. Weren't super close, but got along well enough and had a lot of the same friends. After I was done school, I started working in a school, and lo and behold, this guy's mom works there. She started hitting on me from day one and added me on Facebook. One day I fix a computer in her room, and she messages me after saying we should go out for drinks and tells me that she is up for anything. She had been working out and on diets and was looking like a grade A cougar, so I happily accepted. As it turns out, though, her son still lives with her and she didn't want him to know. So she tells him that she's going to the bank, comes over to my house and sucks me off and plays with herself like it was the only thing she'd ever wanted to do in her life. Then goes home. It was great for both of us, so she would come over a couple times a week just for sex and head home. She made me lunches at work a few times and is a really nice woman. Story 5. I'm a referee for a sports league. I also go to all of the practices and help the kids. Well, this one boy, age 16 in particular, I start to mentor. His mom wants to invite me over and have dinner. I politely decline. I'm 22. She informs me the next weekend that her son doesn't have a father figure in his life, and it would help him out a lot to have a mentor that just helps along the way. So a few weeks after she invited me to dinner again, I go over there. She's pretty attractive for having 3 kids. She is about 5'5", and 120. They live in a pretty nice house. We were having one of the best dinner I could ever have. Well, I played on the Xbox with the kid for an hour, and he really wanted me to stay over. He even asked his mom. He went to shower. His mom talked to me and said, "Hey, look, if you can do it, it would mean a lot to him." I said, "Screw it." And we played Xbox till around 11:30. I was actually having a fun time with the kid. So his mom comes in the room and says, "All right, time for bed." I thought this was a bit odd, having a bedtime, but her house, her rules. And this is the time we've been waiting for. She tells me that the couch is made and ready. I say, "All right, let me take my shower, then I'll be off to sleep." I get out of the shower and I'm just about to crawl on the couch in surprise. There goes his mom. I was a bit startled and said, "Oh, I thought I was sleeping here." She interrupted and said, "Well, I thought you were too. I can get up if you need me to." Getting a little older and missing major opportunities from my past because I didn't know any better. I said, "Yes, ma'am. I'm going to sleep here." She said, "Great." The best fucking a 22-year-old could get came from that night and many nights after. It would always be a text from the boy. "Hey," my mom said, "you can sleep over." I enjoyed this for a very long time. She was 36 and not married. I don't know if I got played into that or what. Story 6. My good friend from college, his mom was getting remarried for the 4th time, I believe. And as so, they were only having a small party for friends and family at his new stepfather's house. My friend said they'd have a keg, so I agreed to go with him. And he drives us there almost 2 hours away from school. When I get there, I'm introduced to his family as basically the reason my friend, let's call him Kevin, drinks at school. So everyone I meet is basically "so you're the alcoholic Kevin has been telling us about, so I don't drink at this party." His mom, on the other hand, gets wasted, as well as him. So flash forward to after the party. Kevin's head's in a toilet in the basement, and I'm sober. Or I'm trying to convince him to let me drive his car back to school. His mom comes downstairs and pushes me against the wall, shoves her hand down my pants and says, "Isn't this every college guy's dream?" I tell her no, she's just got married. Anyhow, she starts undoing my pants and blows me, with her son not 5 feet from us, still passed out in the toilet. This is where it gets interesting. My friend's new stepdad comes downstairs and sees his mom with my cock in her mouth and explodes. She runs upstairs after him, and he begins to throw all her furniture out on the front lawn. She calls the police on him. He then tells me to go get in his truck because he needs to go to the police station. I'm basically shitting my pants at this point, but go and get in his truck. Apparently he had some contract with the city for his business and couldn't be having the police come to his house. He ends up passing out at the police station. They tell me to get him home. So now I'm driving this passed out guy's truck whose new bride blew me an hour ago. The next day, wake my friend up easy and tell him we need to leave. I still don't know if they ever told him what happened. I was not invited back. Story 7. Worked at this shitty restaurant as a prep cook dishwasher in high school. One of the waitresses older than me started dropping hints. Being that this woman was a good deal older than me at the time, she was late 30s, I figured she was just trying to get a rise out of me. So one night, closing up, she just bluntly says, "I'm going back to my house to get naked, smoke, and I want you to come with me." So of course I go. And clearly I do well enough that she keeps inviting me back. It lasted about 3 months, and I'm sure that the women after her were probably very grateful for my early instruction. So she quits the place, and of course we stop seeing each other. So one day this kid I knew back in second grade suddenly moves back, and he hooks up with my group of friends. One night we are riding around and smoking, and he says, "Hey man, let's stop by my place and get some food. My mom's cool." We arrive, and I'm thinking, oh, crap. This used to be Sarah's house. And we walk in, and it's all the same furniture, so do shit. Sarah is his mom. I'm super freaked out, hoping his mom isn't going to wake up. She does. Comes out, and her first line isn't to her son, but to me. "What the f*** are you doing here?" Yeah. Super uncomfortable. Story 8. I don't know if you would call him a friend, but a kid that I had like 2-3 classes with in high school. It was a few years after, and granted, I had no idea what his mom looked like. Anyways, I stuck around and went to university around where I grew up and lived from my childhood home during the time. Most of my friends went away to college, including this particular friend. And like most single guys my age, took to Tinder and graciously swiped right on any cougar I possibly came across. I matched with this pretty good-looking 46-year-old woman who I found out was widowed years earlier and just looking for some fun. I was happy to oblige her, and the only reason I knew she was this friend's mom was when I got to her house and we were having some drinks on the couch. I saw his graduation picture from our same high school with my same grade year across it, and did some digging when I got home. Banged ex-classmates' mom, thanks to Tinder 9 out of 10. Story 9. One of my best friends, going on 10 years, and myself were both single a few summers ago and decided to just have fun to kill the time and to get rid of both of our dry spells. So we did. And then once more, a few days later. Still great friends to this day. A few months ago, she messages me and tells me her mom is desperate to get laid and is driving her nuts trying to get her to find a guy for her. I've been flirting and talking a big game to her mom for years, always just mostly joking. Don't get me wrong though, her mom is a tiny woman and super hot. I jokingly volunteered to be the one to help out the mom. So I go over there and she is obviously not joking. So then had fun with the mama. And yes, the daughter/my friend is in the same house, one room over and awake the whole time. Now I'm actually dating the best friend of the daughter. Story 10. My sister, let's call her Jen, was a remarkable goalkeeper and was made captain of our school's varsity soccer team as a freshman. Jen was always popular and quickly became the leader of the soccer club, meaning her teammates would almost always have a team dinner/bonding at our house every other week. Two of these teammates, who we'll call Shelby and Sarah, were juniors and absolute besties. They grew up across the street from each other, went to elementary and middle school together, and would constantly stay at each other's places without having to ask their parents. Now here's where shit gets complicated. Sarah's dad had gone through a nasty divorce with his wife when both Sarah and Shelby were freshmen. Her mom moved to the next city over and got weekend custody. What makes this so scandalous is that, around their daughter's junior year, Shelby's parents started noticing that she said she would be spending the night at Sarah's place when Sarah should have been staying at her mom's house. Well, one day their curiosity gets the best of them, and they look through their daughter's phone only to discover a long series of texts, calls, and photos being sent to and from Sarah's father. She was 17 at the time, and he was 38. Her parents blew a gasket and made such a scene that rumors quickly spread everywhere. My sister Jen ended up talking to Shelby about all of this and getting the whole truth out of her one night while we were watching a movie. But that phone conversation was more interesting than any movie that could have been playing that night. Story 11. It just kind of happened. We worked together and were good drinking buddies. She was going through a divorce and I'd just become single from being cheated on. One night around Christmas, she got the mistletoe out and gave me a kiss, but I went in for the snog. A couple of weeks later, after some lovely flirting, we did the deed. 10 years later, we're still together and the friend has accepted it. I tend not shove it in her face that I'm sleeping with her mom. Story 12. I had fun with my friend's girlfriend's mom last October. It was honestly top 3 best sexual experiences I've ever had. It started with me following her on Instagram, and any time I was around her, I'd compliment her or flirt with her. Finally, I invite her to join us at an Oktoberfest event. And we are flirting so finally I go for a kiss and she was into it. She offers to give me a ride back to my friend's house, and as soon as we park, she leans over and starts giving me head. This goes on for about 5 minutes, then we get out and I bend her over her car and fucked her, until I came inside her. When my buddy's girlfriend found out, she was super pissed, but it was definitely worth it. Story 13. I lost my virginity to my friend's mom. She was the original MILF. Came about after prom of all times. Before that, my friends and I had a pact about losing our virginities before we left school. Fast forward to prom, and I go downstairs, and there she is drinking. I join her. We had scotch, aged 18 years. Just the way she likes it. We had sex on the pool table in the end. It was amazing. I have to say I certainly was obsessed for quite some time. Story 14. Went all through high school with a guy still friends to this day, Ashley. Anyway, so his mom was a bit of a bicycle. Everyone's had a ride. One night I was drunk after a night at the pub. I came back to his to crash and his mom had not gotten home long before that. Ended up smashing her on the couch. He walks in halfway through, shrugs and goes to bed. Guess it was nothing new really. Couple of years later, I had the opportunity to bang his older sister after a similar situation, but I held off on that account. Sense of morality, I guess.